Hello, everybody. My distinct and absolute exclusive pleasure to welcome David Amerland for this last communication from Google Plus. Even though we're doing it on Zoom, to kind of stick it to Google, but for pulling the plug in Google Plus. But April 2nd is the date when Google Plus is officially going to be departing us, and at least according to official reports. Today, we have some news that apparently Google is coming back with a new service, and it's my understanding it was going to be called Google Minus. If you look at the YouTube settings, analytics, I should say, for last year, one of the biggest thumbs down on Google YouTube videos was the video for the end of the year 2018 statistics or something. I don't remember the counts, but there was a ton of thumbs down on that particular video, much more than thumbs up. And I think, you know, the brains at Google, as I call them, brilliant minds of Google, decided this is a really great phenomenon, because if you look at all the stuff that happened last year in the news and all the negatives on TV and radio and, you know, everything surrounding the Mueller and Trump, everything, it seems like everybody is into negative news. And I think Google picked up on that and decided that why should things be always plus this, plus that? So I think this is the reason why they're going with Google Minus as the new service, because it's obviously a lot more popular than Plus. And we'll talk a little bit more in a minute. But first, I want to again welcome my dear friend David Amerland and have him say a few words, and we'll go from there.
Yeah, Oleg, first of all, I'm honored to be here. You're absolutely right. There's so much to talk about. And Google, the brains at Google have been looking at the upside down kind of thing. And I think, you know, they're beginning to see the value in inverting the things which we take for granted and going from there. So I think you're onto something big here, which if we unpack as we move along this hangout, which is not on Hangouts, we're going to get into some very, very interesting things.
Right. And you know, the more I think about it, the more it makes sense, because if you look at it from a standpoint of, you know, glass half empty, glass half full, people always tell you you need to try to be positive, you need to look at things in the positive light, blah, 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 you know, or as they say on Seinfeld, yada, yada, yada. And the bottom line is that's not what people really want, that's not what people really do. Everybody's life sucks. And what's the famous expression, you know, life sucks and then you die. So with everything seems to be like there's a lot more in culture negative than positive. And so it only makes sense for Google to say, okay, you don't want any positive stuff. You know, Google Plus was a ghost town. Nobody came there. Nobody wanted to do anything with it. Okay, we'll give you Google Minus. And I think one of the things they're doing is also monetizing it. And my understanding is the way it's supposed to work is if you put some posts out there, you get a certain number of credits. And of course, the more minus ones you get on those posts, so you want to go as negative as possible to generate the biggest amount of minuses, because that gives you credits to enable to use the network. So that's how they're going to be monetizing it, is trying to get more traffic to certain negative posts. And then for that, they're going to be paying you some money. And at the same time, there's going to be, of course, there's going to be ads. It's going to be a YouTube-like environment, except it's going to be called Google Minus. And
is that going to be dollars or Google dollars? They have got their own currency there, or do you know?
It's supposed to be something, or you know, blockchain oriented. And they did make, I think there was some article I just read recently that said that, you know, there's a lot of fraud going on with all these blockchain, you know, cyber currency deals. So I don't know why they made that comment about there's a lot of fraud going on. I don't know, you know, a lot of people don't even understand they can't even spell the word blockchain. You know, what is blockchain? Yes. And so with that being the case, it's hard to understand exactly what's going to happen and how much money is going to go to whom. And it's kind of all up in the air. I mean, the official announcement, Google Plus is going to be shut down. Basically, that's what they're saying. But in terms of this new thing, which I can't disclose where I found out about it, but you know, just stick with me here. It's really compelling to see how they're trying to. I mean, one of the things we did know they did, and they're doing, is they're going to be opening up Google Plus on the G Suite side. I was going to ask you about that. What's your take on this whole thing with? Why go with Google Minus on the public side and Google Plus on the G Suite side?
Well, you know, the G Suite side's corporate. So really, I mean, in any kind of balanced society, we need to have sort of a equivalent values, almost like electricity in many ways, with a negative, positive pole in order to have a current going through everything. So
Right.
I think it's a kind of dynamic that makes sense from a Google perspective.
Oh, okay. I thought you were going to say something else. Okay.
No, that's it.
One of the things I thought you were going to also, make a little bit of a mention of the concept of how you fit into this whole thing with Sniper Mind. If anybody's listening here and they don't have your book, amazing book called The Sniper Mind, it's amazing for a number of reasons. My last name is mentioned in the book. That's one of the reasons that, obviously I think it's a phenomenal book, but not the main reason, of course. But seriously, jokes aside, it's an incredible book. And one of the interesting things that I figured out that you never talked about it, you have to understand, guys, that David is kind of a very humble and shy guy. He doesn't like to put himself on a pedestal. So I'll do all of that on his behalf. Hopefully he won't hold it against me. But basically, I started thinking about the whole thing with the Sniper Mind, what it teaches, what it presents. And obviously it talks about things that are being done on almost a superhuman level. In other words, like things being done by people. I mean, that's what the book has ample examples of all kinds of people that are doing these things. But the things are really, you can call them superhumans, which means that it makes you wonder, how is it that regular people, I can't do it, even David can't do it, but these other people supposedly can. And so I started thinking about the whole thing with Google. And, I'm not into conspiracy theories or anything, but just, stick with me on this one. And David, I definitely want you to get your feedback on this.
Okay.
Despite the fact that you're humble. So if you look at what Google has done, they have a company called Waymo. And Waymo is the company that makes what they call autonomous cars, meaning cars that can drive by themselves. No driver needed. You just basically get instructions are given to the car, and it takes off wherever it needs to go. There's no liability involved. So if they do any kind of hit and run type situation, there's
like a Johnny Cup, isn't it?
Because there's no driver in the car. So you can't charge a driver with vehicular manslaughter or whatever, because it's just a car driving there. It's almost like, what's the name of these flowers you blow on, they kind of fly. I mean, you can't.
Dandelions.
Dandelions, exactly. You can't, hold dandelions in court. You can only hold in court people, even though after this Justice Smollett thing, I don't even know if you can do that. But we'll talk about that today. So the idea being that you have this autonomous car which can drive by itself, and they've done a really good job in terms of making sure they don't hit too many people. But it drives on its own. Then there was also a Google X initiative which nobody even knows about and nobody talked about, except for some people who were in the know, about making autonomous rifles, like sniper rifles. The idea being that the rifle can actually be smart enough to execute a shot, in the proper for the proper target without any human involvement. And so I was thinking that maybe this is what the deal was with this whole superhuman concept. There are no superhumans as far as we know, right? So if you look at it from a standpoint in which you can have a car that drives by itself to a particular location, and then you can have a sniper rifle automatically semi-eject itself from the car and do a shot as far as maybe 1 or 2 miles away from where the car is and take any kind of target out, you don't need to have any people involved. All you need to have is AI. And of course, we all know that Google is huge into AI. And then, of course, some machine learning, because you need to learn how to do this on a, with the best accuracy and everything. So I started thinking that this is maybe what's going on here, is how they're going to make sure Google Miners gets adopted is by using these autonomous vehicles and basically taking out people without anybody actually doing anything physically in terms of people involved, taking people out who don't comply with the system. For example, if anybody starts making noises about, what about Google Plus, and we miss Google Plus, blah, 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 you can go to G Suite, you can pay for Google Plus. I mean, if that's your preference, they're still giving you the option. But otherwise, it's basically going to be a deal where people will simply be taken out of commission if they don't comply with the whole Google Minus. And I think this is what Google is doing to make sure that the concept of ghost town is not going to happen with Google Minus when it gets unleashed. So you take everybody's angst against all kinds of things, and everybody being so negative all the time, and watching the CNNs of the world and everything else, everything has to be constantly negative. And Google knows that the Trump phenomenon is not going to last. I mean, another 6 years and he's going to be gone. So they need somebody else to be in place, so that fuel, that angst that people have needs to be unleashed on somebody. And so that's why they're coming out with Google Minus, at least in my opinion. And that's why they're using this technology, including some of the stuff related to Sniper Mind. By the way, if you haven't bought the book yet and you're wondering what the heck am I talking about, make sure you get the book. But the idea, I think all of this, if you try to build, make a big picture, I think it makes sense. David, your thoughts?
Yeah, look, I'm not in conspiracy theories, but I think you may be onto something here, because if we think that Google is very good at geo-tagging and geo-tracking your phone, and then basically they can pinpoint where you are and link that up to the sentiment analysis of your profile, they can see exactly what you've been saying. And you sort of link these things down the chain of events, and I think the taking out of commission and the shift towards a more compliant population, I think then that makes a lot of sense.
Then you think about it from a standpoint of Inferno, Dan Brown's Inferno, where he's talking about overpopulating Earth and everything else. So it also, because Google is a pretty left-wing company, very much into conservation, into recycling, into just making sure, trying to save the environment, so to speak. That also makes sense because you're handling the whole overpopulation concept very nicely as part of this whole initiative, don't you think?
It's a very Soylent Green type of solution, isn't it, really?
I don't know what Soylent Green is.
Okay. It's a Charlton Heston starring role film where they had a sort of a kind of overpopulation solution to it, which, I mean, you got to see the film in order to understand the reference.
I guess. Okay.
But it very much feeds into what the direction you're heading.
Okay. So do you think other companies will adopt a similar approach? And we're going to see a lot more, thumbs down on Facebook and in other places? Or do you think Google is just going to take over?
I think given the competitive nature of corporations, the next natural step has to be a rollable type environment, right?
Right.
Where basically corporations need to kind of have their teams battle it out kind of thing, and then the dominant one gets to sort of dominate the marketplace and the scene.
Right. So I'm assuming that, the new book that you're coming out with, based on what we just discussed, it's already out in the open. People can, know about it. It's not any kind of, secret anymore. I'm assuming the new book is going to be about exactly what we're talking about here, or can you talk about it?
Well, I can't talk about it in explicit detail, but in sort of like very general format, the direction we're heading towards, it kind of samples the scene and tries to give a flavor of what's happening.
Okay, so basically it's going to be another great David Amerlin book. It's going to be about people, and so, that should be sufficient for people to, run out there and buy the book. By the way, do we have a date on the book yet?
No, not yet. We're still negotiating on that one.
I don't think I heard you there. What was the date again?
We're negotiating on that one.
I still don't hear the date, though.
No.
Is your microphone working okay?
Yeah, it is. I can't tell you.
You can't tell me. Okay. So don't take it personally, folks. He can't even tell me, and I'm his friend. So
yes, that's very true. Yeah, I'm legally bound not to say anything.
So, it's one of these deals. I think one of the reasons David is being a little, kind of keeping it close to the vest type deal on this book deal is because of these very cars we talked about. Because obviously, these cars could be sent to do something negative to anybody, and including myself and David too. So this might be our last presentation if somebody finds out about it and decides that we shouldn't have talked about it at this point. But it's going to come out soon enough anyway, so it's no big deal. So and also don't take any thoughts about the fact this is April 1st, like it has some kind of meaning. It's just a date, okay? It's just a date. It happens that basically what happened was the whole Google Plus team went on a serious retreat somewhere in the island, somewhere, probably the island that Larry Page owns. And so they're not coming back till April 2nd, so they decided why kill the thing before, just in case there's going to be probably some kind of technical issues and things like that. Plus they have to man the phones because they're going to have millions of people calling them and belly aching about the fact that Google Plus is being shut down. And the other day I was just reading about Inbox being shut down. And I think it's, I think they must have sent both teams on the same retreat, because Inbox is going to be shut down on April 2nd as well. And
yes, yes, that's true. Yeah,
yeah,
and Hangouts shortly after that.
and Hangouts, right, but we're not using Hangouts anymore anyway, so it doesn't really matter. But Inbox, I read this article on LinkedIn about people saying that, they really miss it, and it's so much better than Gmail, and they're going to lose their emails and things like that. And the only thing I can say, I'm not going to go deep into it, but yes, it is better than Gmail. Yes, you're going to lose all your emails, at least for a short amount of time. And get over it. I had an actual video I posted yesterday that main headline behind that was "Get over it," and so I think it's a good thing for people to
That's a very sensitive approach, really, isn't it? I mean, because
get over it. Oh, I think it's very proactive. My only
yes, yes.
my only complaint about this thing is it's so proactive. Now that we're trying to be in this negative environment, glass half empty.
That's very true, actually.
You
That's a very kind approach to a negative kind of thing. Yes.
Right. So and I obviously didn't invent "Get over it." And
No.
I apologize for this extra noise here. Somebody's vacuuming, but I'm hoping it'll get people a little bit more irritated. So we're kind of going with the same. Same feel here.
Increase the toxicity.
Exactly. So,
Okay.
David, do you have any announcements that you want to share with folks, and kind of what's going on your end? I mean, we know
Well,
about.
there's a lot of things going on. I mean, we have there's a lot of changes happening in the marketplace, a lot of changes happening in the way marketing is being perceived, the way companies are being seen. But I think everything pales in front of the announcement you made earlier, and that kind of fits into quite nicely into the changes in customer service, because if you go into any kind of department store or shop, or even go online, put in your details, and you complain to customer service, immediately get tagged, right? Because we know who you are.
Right.
And we can find you. And then, I think the solution which you're suggesting in terms of how companies can settle the scores they have with their customers. Sorry, that's the wrong approach. Where companies can actually respond to customer complaints will change drastically with this technology.
Yeah, one of the complaints I'm sure people will have is the loss of jobs, because you have all these people dealing with all these angry people. The angry people are going to be slowly kind of basically taken out of commission. They won't be there anymore.
Re-educated.
Well, no, not permanently though. It's a permanent solution. I mean, the Waymo thing.
Permanently.
It's a permanent solution. The only question is that on one hand, you really don't want to just end this life just yet, but you do want to complain, because that's the nature of people. And so, how this complaining on a continuous basis works? Because if Google is going to send out their cars to take care of people who are complaining about their services, and also there's a little bit of conflict of interest, seems to me. On one hand, Google is trying to do Google minus. On the other hand, these people who raise their hands, maybe they're only going to be taking out people who are positive. Maybe they're people who say bring back Google Plus. That's the candidate to basically eliminate, so this doesn't happen. I mean, it's kind of a little bit reminiscent, almost like a nostalgic point to Atlas Shrugged, and how I was talking about how people did things and how negative things are better than positive things like that. Same thing in Fountainhead. And even though she wasn't really a kind of negative person, at the same time I think she was. If you read her books, I think she was. And add to that Russian accent that everybody hates. It's compelling to think from same stuff. But I'm just saying there's a little bit of conflict of interest, maybe, if they. So I think maybe what they're doing, and it's just my take on it, is that by eliminating people who are into the plus side, they're going to leave the minus side, which means minus side will be that much more prevalent. And the only question becomes is, in the end, there's going to be nothing but the minus side, which will be good for them. I mean, because that's what they're pushing. It's going to be good. But changing topics a little bit here, I was just wondering, we have obviously people, and there's all kinds of people, and so on. So let's say we get rid of all the positives and leave with, the Google minus becomes the dominant network, and everybody is just complaining, and it becomes CNN kind of gets folded into it, and the MSNBC. All these people went up basically part of the whole deal, because I think Google is going to license the technology so those people can use it too. But how does this impact, for example, animals? I know it's a little bit off the cuff question, but if you look at Benny, your killer-looking dog, And when I say killer, I mean beautiful dog, not that he kills anybody. And then you have this awesome white cat. So anyway, in terms of your animals, how do you think, how will they react to this constant elimination of people outside? You see more and more, they will see more and more of their own and fewer people.
That's an interesting question, and I think in the interest of being precise here, I need to get a little bit more data. So I will sort of bookmark some time to actually have a really deep discussion with Benny on that one, because we think without his input, whatever we say is going to be skewed from our perspective, and we know that perspective is everything because it changes reality. So we're bound to be wrong. But generally speaking, if we're to make a judgment call here, it will probably be a more equitable world, because Ben is so well balanced in his day that he doesn't seem to have any kind of the issues that we face on a daily basis.
Do you
And
think
I mean,
he's gonna have some of his own angst when he finds out that cute pictures of dogs that used to be plussed, until the counter ran out, are not going to fly anymore? It's going to be nothing but negative. It's going to be minuses. Do you think he'll look poorly at the concept that all these people, well, nobody's minusing him because everybody really likes him, so nobody wants to minus him? How is that going to impact the whole situation there?
I don't know. I mean, it will be interesting to see how that develops and what kind of dynamic will spring from that. And I think certainly from Benny's side, seeing how he always takes things in a very sort of balanced kind of way, he's probably capable of getting on with negatives and positives regardless.
Do you think there's going to be a proliferation of people trying to breed ugly dogs and ugly cats just because of this thing, so they can get more more negative reactions, basically? More negative reactions, I should say.
I don't know. I mean, that'd be interesting to see. I mean, sometimes we tend to go towards opposite ends
I
because
just
we
wonder
can.
how it's going to impact, for example, Benny specifically, because he can't turn ugly all of a sudden, considering
No,
how.
he cannot. I know that. But he can
So
growl in a very mean way. So I think he
yeah,
might start training on that one. I'll have to
I
start
see.
telling him he has to practice that more.
Okay, well that might be a thing. Yeah,
Yes.
it'll be interesting to see how other things get impacted in terms of that, and it's just going to be where it looks like we're entering a whole new world here, and Google is being at the forefront of it as always they have been, and so it looks like this whole kill Google Plus thing is not as bad as. Sorry about that. I had a little interruption. And
He got invaded by a Roomba.
I wanted to yell at the guy, but he's Chinese. No, it's a guy, and he's Chinese, and I don't really want to, I mean, I'm not ready to start dumping on Chinese at this point. The comes out.
Fair enough.
Nice to him to just say, kind of shoot him away, and I don't think he speaks much English. So, but I think he understood the concept that I don't want him in here right now because it's too much noise. I mean, it's one thing to be negative; it's another thing to be completely belligerent and suddenly.
Yes.
So it's kind of a balance thing. So I'm getting used to it.
Getting to that balance. Yes.
I'm sorry.
It's getting that balance right, which is important.
Yeah, I used to have this collection of rants and stuff, so I kind of had a little bit of experience in kind of going to that point. And
I loved your rants. I think they were brilliant.
A number of people, accused me of being whatever, which is totally untrue. But people can say whatever they say. And anyway, with all of that said, so we covered the animals, we covered Google Minus. We covered the death of Google Plus and Inbox. By the way, I know it's April 1st today, so the thing about you losing your email was a joke. You're not losing your email. Everything else we said is true, but the email, you're not going to lose your email. It's exactly the same emails that both Inbox and Gmail were looking at, and Gmail now pretty much has all the features that Inbox had before. I saw this article yesterday about the guy says that the best thing that Inbox had has not been transferred to Gmail. And so, the negative stuff is already proliferating decent enough where you can see it. You can see it bubbling. I mean, you can see it coming to fruition. So I definitely put a big thumbs down on that thing. That's another thing they need to do, is instead of just having thumbs down and count, they should basically have it get enlarged based on how many negatives are there.
There's a neuroscientific explanation why being negative is much easier than being positive. And it goes like this. Essentially, the brain has a defense mechanism which allows it to predict future threats. So it starts off from an already negative state of being, and anything which it has insufficient information for, it ascribes a negative value to. Now that's an energy state that's very quick to actually initiate. So it takes very little energy for us to see something as negative. But if you go into the positive side, where you're actually assessing things on a positive side, or you're being optimistic, you're required to do a lot more mental assessment and mental calculations, and certainly you recruit a lot more centers of the brain for that. So from an energy point of view, it's actually a lot more intensive. So on any given moment, especially if we're tired, we're more inclined to see things as negative as opposed to positive.
Interesting, actually fascinating. But also, it's kind of cool. It kind of explains why Google is trying to go for the lowest common.
Yes, of course.
They're
saving energy. Yeah.
Exactly. They always try to do things to make things. Plus, keep in mind another thing that, when children are little, they have small brains, and we all know that the brain size does determine the level of I don't know what's the right word to use.
Intelligence?
Intelligence, I guess, yeah. Level of intelligence depending on the brain size. So with that being the case, I think that's also another reason why they're trying to keep it down so people's heads don't grow out of their skulls if they just keep getting all this positive energy and all this stuff, like you were saying, it just keeps, there's a lot more that needs to be in place to do positive stuff. They just figured, let's give it to people, make it simple, and just give them just what they need to do so that doesn't create a problem. So Google is looking at it from a health standpoint, from environment standpoint, obviously from the financial standpoint, from the overpopulation. I mean, it's amazing. I was saying a couple of days ago that I don't have the same level of confidence, the same level of trust and belief in Google like I used to have. Not a diehard supporter I used to be, but now that I was kind of thinking about everything we talked about today and everything they're doing and trying to put these things together, kind of tie them together in my neural network, if you will, it's pretty incredible what the company is doing. I mean, pretty amazing.
It's because of that change in motto, really, isn't it? Because they got rid of the
don't be evil.
Don't be evil, right? They got rid of that. But they've got a new one, which is be excellent to each other.
Be excellent to each other?
Yes, and within that, I mean, you think it's a very positive thing, but it's not really, because it's an optimization of negative values. So everything happens in the most easiest way possible. So it just, it's further verification of your theory, which I think is really spot on.
But I guess it depends on what the definition of excellent is in this case.
Well, it's from you think, well, see, here's the thing. We tend to think of excellent as something which is sentimentally colored, but essentially it's an optimization value. So you know how you get the points for optimizing something, where you get not so good, good, very good, excellent.
Right.
And excellent, basically, it's an optimization value. It means things are dialed up or down to the max, depending on what they're doing. So that's the new motto of the company from a technocratic point of view.
Yeah, and also we're going to be switching. Actually, I think they're switching the scale now, where you go from left being, not good, all the way to right being good, kind of like in the same order you're reading. Now they're switching to a more Middle Eastern approach, where you're going to be
right to left, isn't it?
The other way, in other words, it's going to be a good is going to be all the way to the right. I'm sorry, it's the other way around. You're going from right to left. So
so you go to the left for being excellent, really, really good, and
right. But you're going to be reading stuff from right to left, so that will make it. Yeah, exactly. So basically, that's,
because I was when I downloaded their latest human raters guidelines for websites and SEO.
Yeah.
I had to start from the end.
Right.
And then I sort of read my way back to the first page, and that kind of made more sense in the report.
Yeah, exactly. No, all these things is all these different points, like you point out in a bunch of your books, where you kind of look at all these different points and how they are tied together, and how then when you make a big picture, it winds up being something that kind of almost like a Big Bang type situation.
Yeah. Logic accumulates, right? You can't
Exactly.
escape.
And then you just wind up creating something a completely different environment, and next thing you know, you're on Mars, and
That is a big change. The scene outside your windows changed a little bit.
right, exactly. Okay, well, I think this takes us to the end of this April 1st last Google Plus conversation. I'm sure we're going to have some other conversations. They won't be anywhere near as good, but that's the
No, we can't top this one.
yeah. And David, I sincerely thank you for helping me record this today and being part of it. I mean, you're a dear friend, and no amount of negative can ever change that, no matter what anybody says or does. And I just wanted to leave the floor to you for a few final words, and we'll wrap it up.
Definitely. Okay. I mean, here's the thing. Okay, a lot of this is a time to actually focus a lot on what Oleg is putting out, because he's got some really incisive stuff from the inside track. You know, he's in Seattle, which is the home of Amazon, and because of that, he has an inside track into a lot of the Google stuff through Amazon. And this is the time to actually check these things out. But we have a lot. He's right. We have a lot more stuff coming up over the next few months. It won't be as good as this one, but it'll be definitely worth catching up with.
Yes. So it's April 1st, which means get yourself ready for some angst tomorrow, because all of your Google Plus posts are going to be dead tomorrow. Why sugarcoat it? They're going to be gone, and all of your links to inbox are going to be dead. And anytime you try to move that hand on that mouse to pull up inbox.gmail.com, it's going to tell you should go to Gmail, and so you're going to have to go to gmail.com. And actually, it's less typing, so it's a good thing that they're getting rid of it. And so obviously, Google has many more products. Recently they've killed Allo, but I haven't heard of any other announcements of them killing anything. But I'm sure they're coming. So don't feel bad that they're only killing those two. I'm sure they're going to be killing more in the future, just like they've done in the past. They've been building on this thing, on this whole killing concept of their software for a while.
Yeah, and there's a few new products which are coming down the pipeline, which are definitely worth following up, because they'll be killed by the end of the year.
Right, exactly. So they have to come up with new products all the time, because
yes, of course.
There'd be nothing left to kill if they didn't.
Exactly.
So
the company will have to go out of business. Yes, exactly.
Yeah. At the same time, you can't be too bored with your. So if you look at Microsoft Office, if you look at you have Word, you have Excel, all of that. Yeah, they come up with another upgrade. It's the same stuff. Nobody uses it anymore in terms of
boring.
Totally boring. Exactly. You have these templates. You have those templates. You have. I mean, it's the same thing. Totally boring. But if you're talking about new pieces of software, new kind of apps and things like that, things like the Google Spaces, for example, that was a slightly different concept. Came out. They tried to do these different tests and trials, and they tried to add some features and blah blah blah, all of that kind of stuff, and then they just go ahead and kill it. I mean, if you look at Google Plus, whatever it was 6 months ago or something, maybe it was a little more than that, they've added the ability to have images in comments, something they've never had before. And so they make it look that they're trying to work on this stuff, and at the same time then they have these retreats, and then they decide they're going to go ahead and kill the stuff, and they only go so far until you get really mad that the stuff is just not the way it's supposed to be, and then they kill it. And then they come up with new things.
Notes. They killed Google Notes, right?
I'm sorry, David?
Google Notes, they killed that as well.
Yeah, exactly. Google Notes? What's Google Notes?
Well, it used to be a standalone app. You could actually have notes.
Keep? You're talking about Keep?
No. It's actually called Google Notes. And now you have it integrated, if you want, in your Gmail.
I see.
But it used to be standalone, and they killed that because, they had Keep and they had Google Notes. One of them had to go.
You realize that the now official name is Google Keep Notes. They're not calling it Google Keep anymore.
Yeah. No, it's for its name, so the kind of memorial thing they're thinking.
Exactly. Yeah, I think what happened was they wanted to keep happy a guy who came up with Notes, and the guy was just they needed to use them for something else, and the guy was just completely livid that they're killing it. But
Yes.
some people seem to take the stuff just a little too close. I don't know why they get so upset with Google killing things. I mean, I realize it's not a normal concept of any entity killing its own children, but Google is a master of that kind of deal. And it just
Absolutely, they really, really are.
yeah. So basically, the guy they must have needed him for something, and so instead of just letting the guy go or commit suicide or whatever he was going to do, they decided to put the name of the app over to Google Keep because it would still work as Google Keep Notes. Obviously, nobody's calling it Google Keep Notes. Most people don't even know. But then, of course, you have some people that think that inbox dying is going to be the end of their email. So,
well, Pixelbook might go as well, incidentally. The engineering team, which has been assigned to Pixelbook, has been reassigned to other tasks.
mm-hmm. Yeah.
Never a good sign, I must say.
Right. But, Pixels, I don't think they've sold that many Pixels anyway, so I don't think it's going to be a huge loss. And right now, I noticed also there's tons of Chromebooks are on sale. They were just on sale the other day for way cheaper than normal. And maybe they're coming up with. I mean, they have like we said, they have to come up with new stuff to be able to kill it. And there's no other way to do it than just keep coming out with new stuff. So it keeps us a little bit interested and keeps us.
It's an interesting business model they have, right?
Right, totally. And notice that practically nobody else has the same one. So that's why.
Well, exactly.
It's still king. When people say that whatever 70-80%, what's the percent now that people use Google for search?
Oh wow! Internationally now it's almost 92%. It's really staggering.
92%. Okay, so. They're the company. I mean, there's no two ways about it. So they need to work on these, greater than life initiatives that wind up changing the whole concept of the whole world. And it'll be interesting how it turns out. I mean, that's all I can say. I mean, it's always been interesting. It's going to be even more interesting for people who are, somewhat of cynics, like myself. I'm considering myself one of these people. It's going to be, great. I mean, because I can rant and rave much more so than I've done before.
It's a rant paradise thing, isn't it, really?
I'm extremely happy about Google doing what they're doing. I just might become their huge fan again after this. And we'll see how this whole thing goes. Again, if anybody from Google is listening, remember, it's better, instead of showing the count how many Google minuses there are, make the actual thumbs down deal grow in size. Okay, the more people click, the more you grow in size. And the idea being that eventually you have a post that looks like this, where it covers up pretty much the whole screen. Oh, you have to have a little bit of a thumbs down visible though, so it has to be.
Yes,
that
exactly.
Way, it'd be cool, and you might even make an animation where you have like the old sparks that used to be on Google, whatever it was called before, but the Google Minus will be sparks that'll actually have these shooting things going out for however many minuses there are, and at the same time maybe have. In addition to that, have another view mode that allows you to have your much loved thumbs down, and then it just shows how it keeps growing because people keep hitting it and keep commenting and everything else. And then I don't know how they're handling negative comments. That's another thing that's still up in the air because Google is always keeping everything mum, so until it actually comes out. And maybe somebody will leak it, although Kami is out of a job, so I don't know if he's going to be leaking anything. So anyway, let's just wrap it up. David, always immense pleasure.
It's been a pleasure for me too.
And with that, we'll finish it for today. And if you guys have any questions about any of this, send them to somebody else.
Yeah, yes. Bye, folks.